Hello everyone, this is Killenberg. Today I'm reviewing Dragon Ball. Like many people, I grew up watching this on Cartoon Network during its Toonami block. I actually started watching it with one of my brothers. We actually started with Z. For those that don't know, Toonami aired Dragon Ball Z first. Dragon Ball is based on a manga with the same name by Akira Toriyama. The franchise itself is based on a Chinese legend called Journey to the West. Now the main character is a boy named Goku who has a tail. Goku ends up meeting Bulma and she teaches him about the Dragon Balls. For those who aren't familiar with the Dragon Balls, you gather all 7 of them and it summons a dragon named Shenron, or Shenlong in the Japanese version, and he grants one wish. Then he met some of his other friends such as Turtle, Roshi, who ends up giving him the Flying Nimbus and teaches him the Kamehameha, or Kamehameha in the English dub, and later becomes his master. Oolong, Yamcha, Puar, Chi-Chi, and the Ox King. The first major villain is Pilaf. He's not as serious as the other villains in the franchise. He wants to rule the world. But when he tries to make a wish on the Dragon Balls, Oolong wishes for a pair of panties. Pilaf ends up trapping them in a room, and there's a glass ceiling. It's supposed to be set up so the sun burns them when it becomes daytime. Goku ends up telling them a story about a monster that killed his grandpa. He looks at the moon and transforms into this gorilla creature. So we actually find out that he killed his grandpa. This creature is called the Great Ape, or the Ozaru in the Japanese version. Then Goku goes to train with Roshi, and another boy named Krillin shows up. They end up getting a lady named Launch, who has blue hair, but when she sneezes, her hair turns blonde and she becomes aggressive. They have a tournament, and Roshi competes as Jackie Chun. There's another character named Nam that was from a poor village, and Roshi actually helps him. He gives him a dino capsule and tells him that water is free there. Jackie Chun and Goku end up fighting. Goku turns into the Great Ape, but Roshi destroys the moon. Krillin gives Goku his clothes, and him and Roshi fight some more. But they end up knocking each other down. When neither of them can get up by the 10 count, the announcer decides to make a rule that whoever stands up and says they're the champion is the winner. Goku stands up at first but can't say it, so then Roshi says it. But Roshi takes them to dinner and Goku eats a lot and his bill ends up being the same exact amount as any he won. Now this part I'm going to mostly skip because it's very long, but this part is still pretty good. Goku ends up defeating the Red Ribbon Army. Now there's some interesting parts in this, like he gets saved by a girl named Suno, and then goes to Muscle Tower to save the village chief, and he ends up meeting Android 8, who he calls Aider. Commander Red gets General Blue, who has this special ability to make people immobile. They end up going to Penguin Village from Dr. Slump. Now, I don't really know much about Dr. Slump. I do know that Akira Toriyama made that too. General Blue ends up using his ability on Goku, but Orale stops him. Goku ends up meeting a boy named Upa and his dad, Bora. Commander Red ends up hiring a mercenary named Tao. Tao ends up killing Bora, and he tries to kill Goku, but Goku had the 4-star Dragon Ball in his shirt. So his grandpa's Dragon Ball ended up saving his life. Goku ends up climbing Korin's tower, and he actually meets Korin. Korin is this talking cat. Goku tries to get this water from him, but it turns out that him trying to get the water was the training. Then he ends up defeating Tao by kicking a grenade that Tao threw. The grenade ends up blowing up Tao instead. Unable to track the last Dragon Ball, they end up going to Roshi's sister, Baba, and she makes them compete against other fighters. One's based on the Invisible Man, one's a vampire, one's a mummy, and one's a demon, and Goku ends up fighting his Grandpa Gohan. He doesn't know it's him though because he's wearing a mask. Grandpa Gohan ends up swinging him by his tail and his tail eventually falls off. The match ends with Grandpa Gohan giving up. Goku ends up getting the Dragon Ball from Pilaf. So they end up using the Dragon Balls to bring Bora back to life. Goku actually grabs the 4-star Dragon Ball, and it turns into stone in his hand. Then there's another tournament, and the main villain in this one is Tien. Tien's master was Roshi's rival, Shen. Chiaotzu tried to help Tien cheat, which Tien did not like. While fighting Goku, Tien destroys the ring, and they continue fighting in the air. Tien ends up winning because a driver hits Goku. Tien ends up becoming good, and they have dinner together. Goku notices that Krillin has been gone too long, and he actually ends up finding Krillin's dead body. We find out about a villain named King Piccolo. King Piccolo was let out by Pilaf. He was actually trapped in a rice cooker, and we actually find out that Roshi's master Mutaito is actually who put him in the rice cooker. He has some minions who are also named after instruments. Their names are Tambourine, Piano, Cymbal, and Drum. Piccolo and his minions were actually trying to kill every martial artist, and King Piccolo himself ends up killing Shenron right after he grants him eternal youth. Goku actually loses the first time, but the second time they fight, he actually used the Kamehameha with his remaining arm, and he punched through King Piccolo's body. King Piccolo ends up laying an egg at the last minute. The egg hatches, and we see a child that looks a lot like Piccolo. On top of Korin's tower, Goku puts his power pole on top, and he goes to the lookout, which is where Kami lives. There he meets Mr. Popo, and he does some training. He ends up meeting Kami, and he mistakenly thinks he's Piccolo. We find out that Piccolo was the evil part of Kami. Kami decides to restore the Dragon Balls, and they revive everyone that Piccolo and his minions killed. Now the final arc is another tournament, but now Goku is a teenager. They don't recognize him at first. Goku no longer has a tail. Kami agreed to restore the moon if Goku had his tail permanently removed. There we meet the new Piccolo, and we find out he's actually the reincarnation of the other Piccolo. There's also a girl Goku's age. We find out that she's Chi-Chi, and Goku promised to marry her. But he misunderstood. He thought a bride was something to eat. Yeah, he thought it was a type of food. So he ends up beating her in the match, but agrees to marry her. When Goku fights Piccolo, Piccolo destroys the arena. Now there's a part where Piccolo thinks he killed Goku, but Goku actually falls into Piccolo, and technically Piccolo fell out of bounds. Goku ends up giving Piccolo a Senzu Bean. While Goku and Chi-Chi were preparing to get married, the Ox King's castle was on fire. Goku ends up getting the Bancho fan, but it doesn't actually take the flames out. So they end up meeting the Guardian of the Furnace, Anin, and it turns out Grandpa Gohan is there too. Goku ends up fixing the furnace leak, and then him and Chi-Chi get married. Baba appears to be showing us the future in her crystal ball, but then gets in the way. But we know what comes next, Dragon Ball Z. And that's the end. I think it's a pretty good show. Now the show does have some nudity and some adult humor. I can handle it, but I know some people can't. This show also has some violence, but I'm sure most people know that.